got Jim Davis on Infect. You've got Braun-Duin on Bantel Eldrazi. On the left, you've got your 2015 Players Champion. On your right, you got your 2016 World Champion. Should be a lot of fun to watch here. Now, you got to remember one thing, too. Team MTG, Metagame Gurus, these guys have destroyed modern tournaments on the SCG Tour.
Yes, and they're all, I believe, running the same list this weekend.
Oh, yeah, you've got Jim, Andrew, and Danny, I believe, all playing Infect. This feels like Andrew's influence the most. Andrew Jessup has been dominating people with Infect for months now. You got to remember also Peter Ingram, who's no longer on the team because he works for Wizards of the Coast now. He won a Modern Open with Jeskai. And then Kevin Jones in Dallas. Unfortunately, Kevin missed his flight. A lot of flight troubles here in the SCG Tour. But the daddy also won a Modern Open earlier this year with a, I believe, Grixis Delver strategy. So Team MTG, they know how to modern it up, man.
And I approve of Jim Davis's choice this weekend. I've been very loud and very consistent in saying that I think that Infect is Modern's most powerful deck. I'm actually occasionally surprised it is still legal in its current iteration. And I don't think you can really go wrong selecting this deck for a tournament. Not every matchup is good, and certainly the uptake of Abzan and the Path to Exile alongside Lingering Souls is not the best news for this deck, but I still think it's fundamentally playing a much more powerful game than the other decks of the format.
All right, for Brian, you see the Windswept Heath in the graveyard, the breeding pool. Now he's going to play in Eldrazi Temple. It's a Spellskite, and he'll pass the turn back. And Spellskite, very good against Jim Davis's deck for obvious reasons, as he's going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath.
Although, I believe Jim right now equipped with a main deck copy of Twisted Image.
Oh, he's going to do the twist.
Well, Spellskite's going to do the twist.
So, no, that's reasonable. And Spellskite has done the twist. Jim will draw a card. Picked up another copy of Inkmoth Nexus. And we're going to keep it going here. Jim will untap, begin his third turn of the game. Pendelhaven the draw. I think he might have both copies of Pendelhaven in his hand right now.
Yes.
Looks that way. With Might of Old Kroja in between. Inkmoth Nexus. Fire it up. Not a bad time to take a shot with Might of Old Kroja, I think. I think Jim's going to make his move here. Might of Old Kroja means that Jim's going to attack here for 5. In fact, 5 to go here on Brian. And it'll be Brian's turn. He'll take his third turn here in just a moment. I think Brian was hoping that Spellskite would be the one that stabilizes things for him, but Jim had the timely answer.
And it often is game one. I mean, that's one of the better game one cards you can have against Infect. But Davis prepared for this weekend 2 main deck copies of Twisted Image. Post-board, there's often enough Twisted Images and just random artifact removal that Spellskite rarely steals a game from Infect. Game one is supposed to be the game where it's a big edge if you have it.
Well, I agree with that. I think the game one gives you a big edge, but there, you know those Infect players are ready for Spellskite after sideboard, and, and some of them are even ready for it pre-board as well, as you saw with Jim with the main deck copy of Twisted Image.
And you're going to see Twisted Images and Dismembers in these lists.
Noble Hierarch, pass it over. Jim will draw. Well, fine, another Twisted Image then. Jeez, somebody doesn't want to lose to Spellskite this weekend. Jim also has a copy of Dismember in his main deck too. So he's not messing around. And for what it's worth, I mean, at the very worst, Twisted Image does cycle. But Twisted Image kills Noble Hierarch, kills plenty of creatures in this format. We can't forget about that.
Oh, I'm sure he's thrilled to have drawn a second copy.
I think the question Jim's kind of asking himself right now is, can I go for the W? Jim could play Pendelhaven, use one Inkmoth Nexus to activate the other Inkmoth Nexus, play Finds of the Vastwood, that's lights out. But does he actually have to make that sort of move right now?
He can play the slower game here, where he's just firing up a Nexus. He can activate a Pendelhaven and pass. You know, if he just goes for it, he just shoves. Something like Path to Exile or Dismember could potentially break him up here. And especially with another Twisted Image, he can keep playing this card advantage game too. He can activate the Nexus, pump it with Pendelhaven, get into Twisted Image the Hierarch, and even if BBD has Dismember or Path to Exile, it doesn't really matter that much.
Well, DJ JD will fire up this Nexus. He'll serve in. I think he's saying, I'm just going to deal 1. Okay. Thought he might want to deal 2 because of the Pendelhaven, but he's playing a little bit slow. Does have Apostle's Blessing at the ready.
Yeah, I think he wants to protect the Nexus from a removal spell here with the Blessing. I suspect Twisted Image is going to go after the Noble Hierarch here in a moment.
Just going to pass the turn. So he's going to upkeep this. Okay, sure. That's fine. I thought that maybe what we might see Jim do is hang on that Twisted Image, and maybe Brian leaves the only thing available for mana for after he plays a spell. The only mana he leaves available is Noble Hierarch, and then Jim can kind of get him that way. But we're going to see the upkeep Twisted Image, Blighted Agent, the draw, and now Brian will take his draw step and move forward with his turn.
The problem is that BBD's he's in the squeeze right now, where he needs to get something onto the battlefield so he can start pressuring back. But he also needs to keep up appearances as much as possible, because it's so likely that Davis can kill him if he taps low enough. Doing both of those things is very challenging.
Well, there's a Displacer. Displacer very, very, very good against Infect if the mana is available. Jim will draw. Another copy of Apostle's Blessing. Now he might have to go for it.
Well, I think he can go for it with Vines and Blessing backup.
I think so.
And that's probably enough to make a move here.
You got to think it's got to be pretty good, right?
Yeah, you can play the Pendlehaven as land number 5. You can tap the one Pendlehaven first and then play the second Pendlehaven, so he has enough mana to do everything.
So here's your green from the first Pendlehaven. Jim just wants to make sure he sequences this all right.
Well, he needs double green in this sequence to be able to do kicked Vines.
Correct. So what he can do here is he can say, activate here, play my other Pendlehaven, then I'll have double green.
Yeah, he can do. There's a couple different routes he can do it. It's just, he has to make sure that he leaves himself with double green when he moves for the Vines, assuming that that's what the plan is here.
Yeah, I have to imagine we're going to see him make a move with Blessing as backup. So now for Brian, here's how Brian gets out of this one. Path plus Dismember.
Yeah,
he's got to have both. He doesn't have either, and that's going to do it. So Jim Davis is going to win game number 1 here over Brian Braun-Duin. As Infect, very quickly up a game over Bant Eldrazi, which means we're going to turn our attention to the sideboard. We'll start with BBD and his 3 negates, 3 Stony Silence, 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Elspeth Sun's Champion, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Graph Trigger's Cage, and that 1 Spellskite.
I imagine you'll see the Spellskite and the 2 copies of Engineered Explosives come in for the matchup. The negate is interesting to me, and this is where you see the difference between Spell Pierce and Dispel type cards and negate. I think BBD is probably trying to cover a lot of bases with negate in the sideboard. 1 mana versus 2 might be the inflection point where it's just not cheap enough or reliable enough interaction for him to bring in. Maybe it's still worth it on the balance, especially with him on the play, but I'm sure this is a matchup where he was really wishing this would be one of his pieces of 1 mana interaction rather than a 2 mana piece of interaction.
We go to Jim now. He's got 4 Kitchen Finks, 3 Spell Pierce, 3 Nature's Claim, 2 Dismember, a Twisted Image, a Dryad Arbor, and a copy of Graph Digger's Cage. What do we like here for JD?
The Twisted Image and the 2 copies of Dismember. Pretty straight up stuff here. I don't think he wants to go to the Kitchen Finks beatdown plan. I think the Infect plan is still solid here. The rest of these cards are for other matchups, but just more creature removal. Very solid for Davis in this matchup.
Well, that gives you an idea of what each player is working with here, as game number 2 will be underway in just a moment. But got to mention that we're going to have our 3rd regional championships of the year taking place here very soon. It'll be over Pro Tour Kaladesh weekend. So if you're not qualified for the Pro Tour, you're looking to get some SCG points, a little bit of cash, and get a sweet playmat. You can learn more about regionals right now.
Don't miss the StarCityGames.com Regional Championships. On August 6th, play Standard at one of the many regional locations across the US and Canada. The first 200 players to register for each event will receive a Hot Pursuit playmat and token just for signing up. Regional Championships are part of the SCG Tour with SCG points for all players. Champions will earn an exclusive trophy, and all top 8 competitors will receive a playmat, pin, share of $5,000, and a spot in an upcoming SCG Invitational. Visit go.starcitygames.com/regionals to learn more.
We are back, and we do apologize. That is our Season 2 regionals. These things happen, Patrick.
Go.starcitygames.com/regionals. More information. Find the regional championship close to you. October 15th Pro Tour weekend.
Good save.
Go check it out.
Appreciate that. We'll have our Season 3 commercial, our right one for you guys for next round, so we do apologize for that. There's a new playmat. There's a bunch of cool stuff going on. Just trust us.
SCG points, cash.
Yeah.
Qualifications for the Season 3 invitation in Atlanta.
You excited for that one?
Yeah, I love going to Atlanta.
That's great.
I love going to Atlanta.
Hey, have you decided if you're going to come to Grand Prix Atlanta yet or not?
I am not. I have planned something different that weekend.
You are no fun whatsoever.
Do you know what so that's
I don't know what you have planned at all.
It's my birthday weekend.
Okay, even more disappointed you're not coming now.
Mm-hmm. And myself and my buddy, my friend, lady friend, going to Portland for the weekend.
All right, you've found a good escape Portland's really good. So
Yeah.
I accept. I'm not happy, but I accept. Also, Portland is closer to you than Atlanta is. So this time you made it out okay. But so here's the thing. When's the last tournament you've played in?
Last tournament I played in. That is interesting. Let me think about
Like
this.
big tournament, stuff on the line. Like you didn't go to the team Grand Prix. You haven't been in a Grand Prix in a while. We haven't played an Open in a really long time.
I did not play in Grand Prix Los Angeles in spite of living 15 minutes from the tournament site.
That's correct.
Was it Grand Prix Oakland? Grand Prix Oakland.
At the very beginning of this year?
Yes. Where I made a 6-3, then petered out in day 2 sort of run.
A very uninspiring run.
Yeah.
I'm just generally disappointed in you. Now, someone who plays a lot of Magic, well, that's Jim Davis. He's taking a look at his opening hand. Both players are. But we'll learn a little bit more about DJ JD, who is the Players Champion, 32-year-old from Long Island, New York, with 11 Open top 8s and 2 wins, 2 Invitational top 8s as well for Jim. He's a streamer. He's a DJ. He hosts a weekly show. He loves hockey, and he's the 2015 Players Champion. Got to watch his game grow over the past handful of years as well, too.
Yes.
been a lot of fun.
And also, beyond Jim's resume building up over the last couple of years, the amount of professionalism and organization that he's taken to his craft and now his team's craft, that's also been noteworthy. And he was a player who was almost, I feel like, 1 foot out the door in terms of continuing to pursue Magic, but got reinvigorated with winning the Players' Championship in 2015. Now is the captain of Metagame Gurus and is trying to do both the sponsorship route while continuing to succeed in tournaments. So it's been cool to see him really ramp it up this year.
Team's good.
Yes.
They've been performing really well. The only person on Team Metagame Gurus who is not qualified for the Players' Championship right now is Danny Jessup, who we saw there last year.
Yes.
And I know Danny's got some work to do. He's had some difficulty making top 8 this year. He has lost playing for top 8 in the final round 4 times. I was the 4th one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Look, I feel kind of bad.
Do you?
Not like that bad. We had a really fun match. But he's going to break through. I think we'll see him at the Players' Championship again. But I got him. And I think were you watching from a distance, eyes in the sky?
No, I was not.
No, you were having too much fun in Las Vegas that weekend.
We only saw the match where Todd beat you on 5 cards.
Right. Good time. Good time.
That was the one match we tuned in on.
Great time to tune in. So thanks for that. Glad you got to see all that. Jim's draw step is a Gataxian Probe, as Brian led things off with a Windswept Teeth for a Temple Garden, and now a Noble Hierarch. So Brian's 17, Jim's at 18. Jim wants to see Brian's grip, and we're going to see at least a Drowner. What else we got there? Windswept Teeth. Jim, this isn't your first time on the camera. Lay the cards out, man.
There is an Eldrazi Temple in there, plus some payoff cards. Looks like BBDA's hand is excellent here.
There's a Dismember. There's a Thought-Knot Seer, as well as the Drowner of Hope, the Eldrazi Temple, and the Windswept Teeth. But Jim is better than this. He should know how you lay out cards in situations like this. Unbelievable. Someone who has been in the feature match area countless times.
I know. This is bad.
What's he going to do next? Pile shuffle?
I think he's mostly knocked that off, I think. I don't think he's very much in the pile shuffling anymore. Seeing less of it, I feel like I'm making an impact.
I think
except for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the people who aren't pile shuffling, I got a couple extra piles in Richmond. Quite a few extra. For the eyes in the sky. I wanted to make sure you got a good look at it. Jim with quite a few options to start here. For example, the first land he wants to play is a decision between Breeding Pool and Basic Forest. Looks like he's going to start with a Basic Forest. Doing a little tap dance with that card. Might be thinking Noble Hierarch.
And I think he's trying to, with Dismember in hand, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim's route here was, all right, how do I curve out in such a fashion where BBD is going to cast a Drowner of Hope, I can Dismember it with 1 mana left over, untap, and kill him. What does that route look like? I don't even know if that route necessarily exists with the hand that he has. It doesn't look like it's that heavy on pump spells.
Oh, here's Thought-Knots here. It's a Blighted Agent, Mutagenic Growth, Dismember, Glistener off in the land. I think you almost forced to take Dismember here?
I don't know if that's the case because you could take the Blighted Agent if you take the Blighted Agent, then the Dismember probably goes at either Thought-Knot Seer or Drowner of Hope. But I guess Jim most likely has to hold it for the Drowner. But then you have Thought-Knot Seer against a bunch of things attacking on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think there is at least a reason to consider Blighted Agent. Dismember is definitely the most straightforward of the play, especially with BBD building towards Drowner of Hope.
Oh, what did Foothills to draw there for Davis? We'll see how he wants to take his second turn. I got to say, as you kind of look at the cards that Bant Eldrazi brings to the table, Thought-Knot very good against Infect. Drowner very good against Infect. Displacer very good against Infect. They got a lot of hits here.
There are a lot of hits, but they are hits that are occurring on turn 3 or beyond.
Very true.
And you don't often get a third turn.
Yeah, as we kind of saw in that last game, Brian floundered around a little too much and got killed.
And BBD's draw wasn't even bad.
Yeah.
But, it's just, Infect puts a lot of pressure on you.
All right, Brian. See how he wants to move forward now. Jim just played a couple Infect Threats there in Glistener Elf and Blighted Agent. Pass that turn back over to the world champion.
BBD with a big draw there, just picked up a copy of Dismember.
That's a very good one.
Dismember can take care of the Blighted Agent, and then it's who brawls better. And
that's Brian.
BBD brawls a little bit better.
Yeah, that's not even close.
5/5s v11s. Now the question is how greedy. The straightforward play is just, all right, I'll kill your Blighted Agent now, but BBD might feel like his hand is good enough, especially now, I believe, with Negate in hand, where he can try to trap Jim into making a big move. If BBD is confident that he can win the battle when the stack gets built up, he can possibly wait here. It looks like he's going to just make a more conservative play here and just Dismember straight away.
All right. Dismember's going to resolve.
Negate in hand almost is the tipping point of I should just go ahead and do this, but if he's going to tap out next turn for a Drowner, better just to be mana efficient.
Jim in a little bit of trouble here. I mean, one card that kind of stinks in this matchup, I got to say, is Glistener Elf. Just not going to do a lot, unfortunately for Jim. I don't think it's a card that you can cut so much, but it's just not very good. I think that's the issue.
So I believe Jim did receive a prompt from the judge to play faster after the first turn of the game there, kind of fiddling around with his lands. May have just received another prompt, although this time it's a little bit different as, this is a high leverage spot of the game and he has more decisions to make.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's my little Crozier on the Glistener Elf. Well, another boy.
All right.
Oh, this game just got really hard. A nice thing here for Brian. He's got all that life to work with given the matchup. Not to say that Jim can't kill with regular damage, but
it's Plan B time.
Oh, we going that way?
Well, there's no Plan A anymore. All of his Infect creatures are dead.
Yeah. So it's all on Plan B.
The question now is, do we snap off that mutagenic growth or not? Get him into range. I'm guessing the answer is no.
I would hold it. Yeah, I would dial it back a little. Just gonna put that out there.
I'm guessing that Jim ends up dying with a mutagenic growth in his hand. That doesn't mean that casting it now is correct. Just
yeah,
Drowner's coming and Jim Davis's hand is not very good.
Yeah, Brian's gonna sacrifice this old windswept heath here. I think we might see a breeding pool here in just a moment. He's gonna go with the Hallowed Fountain. Either way, it's gonna be something that taps for blue mana. As you mentioned, Drowner on the way, and that might be the end of Jim's day in regards to this game. We'll see. We'll see. Brian sure is able to sure things up in the sideboarding games of this matchup. The tough spot for him, of course, is that when you go to game number 3, which I think we'll be heading to in just a moment, he's on the draw. And on the draw against Infect, no thank you. So here comes Thought-Knot here for 5. Okay, Path Exile here for Brian. So no 6th mana there for the Drowner, but a Path Exile is going to take care of the Noble Hierarch. Jim will search up a land here in just a moment. Might be Jim's last draw step. We'll see. Picks up a forest there from the path. He'll draw. It's become immense. So that's actually the reason I think he wanted to hold the mutagenic growth. Is because if he had things would have to go very well for Jim, obviously, but if he drew like Inkmoth Nexus and then drew Become Immense, 6+2 plus the 1
Oh, I'm
Plus
not
the
saying.
1/1.
Oh, I'm not saying my mutagenic growth play was correct. Just I was predicting that he would die with it in hand.
I think you might be
Both things can be true.
Here's an attack for 5. Jim gonna fall down to 1. Brian will pass the turn back. Jim will draw. This is something that keeps him alive. Noble Hierarch. All right.
And now he can try to Noble Hierarch block and pump inside of combat to get the Thought-Knot Seer off the table.
I mean, a lot's got to go right, obviously, but he's not dead. Brian will draw. I think Brian drew that mana. Yes, he did. This will allow him to cast a Drowner. Drowner brings Scions. Sack a Scion, tap the Hierarch, get you dead, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So, BBD and DJJD getting ready here for game number 3. It all rhymes.
Yep.
Andrew.
Jim would approve.
Take a look at the sideboards here yet again for each player. Anything you like now that Jim is on the play as opposed to the draw?
Same deal. It's the Dismembers and the Twisted Image. I think those cards are pretty straightforward in this matchup.
How about for BBD?
Well, the question, I guess, is if he wants to do anything with the negates, they are a lot worse on the draw. 2 mana is just, he's not going to win a lot of battles when the stack gets built up because Jim is interacting for 0 and 1 mana, and so trying to do it with 2 is challenging, but probably still worth bringing in on the balance.
Well, there are the options there for both players. Don't expect a lot to change for either one of them, so they'll shuffle up. They'll get ready here for game number 3 here in just a moment. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about the StarCityGames.com Creature Collection. Very popular. We got our Bone Chewer Giants here on us, so that means you can get Bone Chewer Giant, in playmat sleeves and player bundles.
Yeah, you can over to go.starcitygames.com/creature collection. We have all the items available, playmat sleeves and player bundles. You can also head over to the dealer booth at any of the large events that we're vending at.
Now, the other thing that's associated with the Creature Collection, I believe right now, is it our friend the Fruit Bat? I think we're getting a little batty. I don't think, no more Fruit Bats here.
Okay, just the Bone Chewer Giant?
Just the Bone Chewer Giant, giving beatdowns. Based off of, do you remember what Magic card?
Something in Lorwyn, I believe. Hold on. This was a dark spot for me in Magic. I didn't play a whole lot during that block.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Stone Hewer.
Oh, an iconic design.
Yes. Searches up an equipment if memory serves.
And I'm sure your memory does serve. This was during your heyday, your competitive prime.
But it was a giant, not a Kithkin. So.
I know, but you still probably just played 16 hours a day at the time.
Oh, you think 16 is all?
Well, I mean,
jack it up.
Between sleep and runs to Steak and Shake, I mean, that's got to shave. That's got to shave. I don't know, at least 6 hours out of the average day.
First of all, there was not much sleep. Second of all, it's a brisk jog. Just take a shave. Okay.
You got to work off some of the calories.
Yeah. Those Frisco melts will really stay with you, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
5 mana 4/4 Vigilance. You search your library for an equipment card and put it into play. That's what it was. And you attach it to a creature you control. It's actually a pretty good card in Limited.
Yeah, a precursor to Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
At a different power level.
They're basically the same cards.
Slightly different power level.
We'll have Jim Davis on the play here. Remember, Jim did mulligan last game. We'll see if he's going to keep his 7 this game. Doesn't look thrilled about that hand. And now into the tank he goes. Players Champion against World Champion here in round number 3 of SCG Orlando. Awesome match to watch.
Jim known for a ponderous pace of play.
Yes, but it's like right on the edge.
Yes.
But I still think totally fine. Every time I feel like Jim's playing really slow and I want to be like, man, he should really do something before he gets slow play warning, he always acts.
So I think that he is fine within the way that slow play is currently adjudicated.
Okay.
I do not know if the way that slow play is currently adjudicated to be the correct line.
Sure.
Yeah, different conversation.
Absolutely.
I do not think that the Jim should receive more slow play warnings than he currently does, given what the policy is.
He's got a tough call here with this hand, that's for sure. It looks like Brian's go back. Okay. Jim keeps, Brian goes back. He'll be looking at 6 here in just a moment. So while he takes a mulligan, we learn a little bit more about the world champion. Got to watch him last round. Going to watch him again, obviously, here this round. See if he can win game number 3 and get off to a 3-0 start. But for BBD, You know, a 30-year-old who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia, with 14 open top 8s and 4 invitational top 8s, 1 open win. Saw that take place in Las Vegas. Beat Steve Rubin in the finals. It's been fun to watch.
Yes.
Gotta say. I remember, you know, there's been a lot of Brian moments during our time of coverage, but I think the one that stands out the most to me is his win at Grand Prix New Jersey a couple of years ago, beat Tom Ross in the finals. With the, I think Jeskai Delver-ish deck he was playing.
I thought it was Jeskai Stuff.
Maybe Jeskai Stoneblade.
Yeah, I think
maybe
yeah.
more of that. Yeah, it was a little while ago now, but the thing that really stood out to me is he knew how to play against Infect. You know, killing things at the end of turn, not in combat. His deck, I think, was in a very favorable spot anyway, given the build of his deck. But you know, he demonstrated that weekend that he's a multi-format all-star. He knows how to play all the formats, and he plays a lot of Magic.
And it is necessary to be a multi-format star, I think, to be able to succeed, certainly on the SCG Tour, just because the spread of formats. We test them all, particularly Standard and Modern.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not as much Legacy as we used to, but still some of the Tour events in that space as well.
Jim started things off with a little Infect action. He's got the Inkmoth Nexus. Now he's got the Breeding Pool for the Noble Hierarch. Brian with just a Brushland. Now we head back BBD's way. Remember, he did mulligan to 6, but he kept.
And it translates very well to the World Championship platform also, because that's one of the few marquee Wizards events that is multi-format. For the most part, it's standard at the Pro Tours.
Serious Spellskite. It's the first test. Does Jim have the answer? Dismember, Twisted Image, any of that good stuff as he draws a copy of Inkmoth Nexus.
Something to keep in mind, you know, Jim's deck's got a lot of answers to Spellskite, and we saw it get killed for less mana, and Jim drew a card for his efforts there in the first game. If Spellskite doesn't die, his deck doesn't play great Magic against it. His deck's a lot of pump spells, so an unchecked Spellskite, very problematic.
Well, you have to kill it.
Or you can do the Blighted Agent, Nexus plus Pendlehaven route. There's other ways to do it, but it's hard.
I think he might be visiting another way to do it here. He's going to start with Inkmoth Nexus, Exalted Trigger, 2 Infect here for Brian. But you can see Jim's hand right now. 2 Mutagenic Growth, Become Immense, Might of Old Crochet, and a fetch land. All he can do is pass the turn back. So he's got to find an answer. It's possible that Jim may have had like a turn 3 win there if that Spellskite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his hand looked ready to go.
Yeah. Here's Temple Garden from Brian very quickly. He'll take 2, fall down to 18. This is Eldrazi Displacer with a mana available. And that mana available, because it's a Brushland, could mean Path to Exile, or it could also mean Dismember. Heading Jim's way. Another copy of Mutagenic Growth.
And we are almost at the point where Jim's locked. Because once Brian untaps, he can protect the Spellskite with the Displacer, and Jim can't really attack against the Displacer, and he can't cast the spells in his hand because of the Spellskite.
So then it gets to the spot where he's got to kill. Well, I guess he's got to kill the Displacer first, but Spellskite's not going to let that happen.
Right. This is just really bad news for Jim.
Yeah. Jim plays a Wooded Foothills. Now he's going to fire up the Inkmoth Nexus. Fire up the other Inkmoth Nexus. Let's go this way.
Fortunately for him, he has 2 copies of Inkmoth Nexus, and BBD does not have enough mana right now to Displacer 2 things. So he's not quite locked out of combat just yet, but we are approaching that point.
It's getting to be pretty bad for Jim. The walls are kind of closing in here. Brian will draw. He does have Path to Exile in hand, so he even has the 1 mana answer. It looks like he's going to start with Ancient Stirrings. Take a look at the top 5. Brushland, Yavimaya, Cavernous Souls, Drowner of Hope, and Hollowed Fountain is what Brian is deciding between.
And I have to imagine BBD at this point is just in the market for mana.
More lands means more Displacer activations.
Or the ability to activate a Displacer and then also do something else.
He'll take a Hollowed Fountain. Here comes Displacer, free to attack. Brian. Oh, this one's good too, jeez. Sky Spawner.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's going to bring a sign along with it. It also brings along a 2/1 flying blocker. Does it have to be Twisted Image this turn? Because Brian doesn't have the ability to activate Displacer?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily Twisted Image or Bust this turn, but we are pretty close to that spot.
It feels like it is. Twisted Image, Dismember, what have you. I think it's got to be something to kill Spellskite this turn. If not, I don't think he's going to ever get another shot. Let's see what he draws. Jim with a Forest. That ain't it.
And keep in mind, it's not like Jim's got all the time in the world on the way back. He's facing quite a bit of pressure himself. He's at 13, facing 6 a turn right now.
Forest is the play here from Jim. Boy, Brian, I don't know if he had to have Spellskite on 2, but it certainly helped this game.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Well, you and I have talked, over the course of years about, Spellskite's kind of a dubious game, the post-board card, because there's so many answers. A lot of them cantrip or they're super cheap or whatever. It still has its moments.
Yep.
They do not always have the Twisted Image or the Dismember or the Nature's Claim or whatever it is, and you get games like this where Jim's got a handful of targeted pump spells and none of it amounts to much.
All right, Jim is going to fire up Inkmoth Nexus. Attack step. It couldn't block fast enough. So now he's got to get a little bit creative. Mutagenic Growth. Would you like to retarget? Yep. Brian will take 2. Fall down to 14. Try again, perhaps? He will. Brian, yep, I'll take 2 more. How about again? Yeah, I'll take 2 more. Yep. All right.
So I guess the route here is try to get BBD low enough where maybe the Noble Hierarch lets you squeeze through regular damage for lethal somehow.
He's got to try something.
But it's just going to be so hard next turn once the Displacer is available.
And the thing is, Brian's not going to, depending on what Brian draws, obviously, but I don't think Brian's going to put the Displacer shield down. The Displacer is so safe.
I also think BBD is still sitting on a Path to Exile.
Which
on,
he is, yeah.
on top of everything else here.
Might as well Croja. All right, I'll take 2. That Spellskite's really big. Really big. And those creatures will trade. 4 shocks by Jim. Not bad.
Yeah. If that was what his deck was doing. Yeah. That'd be very sweet.
Yeah. The World Champ will draw.
Four Infect plus 8 life plus a Displacer plus a Path, and Jim's down to, I can't imagine very many cards in hand at this point, probably 2. Mm-hmm. At this point, BBD is just, he's going from, you're in that spot of I'm over 99% to win. How do I make it 100? The Infect deck can come out, can claw its way out some pretty crazy spots sometimes. And BBD just taking his time, make sure he doesn't do anything sloppy.
Windswept Heats with the draw. Become immense in hand here for Jim. You mentioned it. Brian's just going to make sure he doesn't do anything sloppy here.
Yep. If Jim fires up the Nexus and attacks, I'm pretty sure BBD will just say, I'll take 1.
Yep.
There's no reason to do anything risky here to try to prevent 1.
Technically 2.
2.
Because of Noble Hierarch. But the point remains.
Yep.
He's not going to interact. And Brian has so much experience playing against Infect that he knows that you don't interact with this deck in combat. You do it post-combat. Typically at the end of that player's turn. So here comes Inkmoth Nexus with that Exalted trigger. And I would be shocked if Brian were to make a move. But this is the safest move, which is just Displacer it.
Yep. If he's making a move, it means that he feels he has any hypothetical 2 cards covered right now.
Mm-hmm. And he's got so many cards covered, right? With how he Displacers with Temple plus Brushland, he has the mana to cast Path and the mana to activate Spellskite.
Yep.
Plus, the mana with the Sky Spawner token, the Scion. So I don't know for Jim. I just don't know.
BBD will take the hit if there's any 2 cards that can kill him if he does make a move. And if there's nothing, then he'll stop it.
Jim draws and Verdant Catacombs. He can try to represent as much strength as he likes, but at the end of the day, Brian's not going to stop attacking. There's the Heath. Davis will activate the Ink Moth. He will attack. Here's a Displacer activation yet again. No, Ink Moth. You hang back there. For Brian, he will displace the Noble Hierarch. He'll untap. And he'll take a draw step. Here's 4 more. Davis down to 1. So that means the fetch land on the battlefield and the fetch land in hand for Davis are now off. If those were going to be options, he'll draw 1 more card. Hey, Twisted Image, how are you?
Little late to the party.
Oh, why? Just a scotch. Just a scotch.
And the only thing he can really cycle it on is to the Displacer. Everything else can get fizzled.
Yeah.
He would like to target the Spellskite, but that doesn't get him anywhere.
That's not going to get him anywhere, yeah. That's the problem there.
So if he needs to redraw here, it has to be on the Displacer, which doesn't really get him anywhere.
Yeah. Let's see. Would have loved to have that Twisted Image come a little bit earlier for very, very obvious reasons. As we saw in Game 1, Jim has plenty of ways to take care of Spellskite, and actually gets more ways after Sideboard. They just did not come up from this deck. That's the long and the short of it. 3 Natures claims 2 Dismembers, an additional Twisted Image in the sideboard to go along with 2 Twisted Image and a Dismember in his main deck. You saw Brian displace the Spellskite, so it's tapped now. That'll take care of the Twisted Image, so the Spellskite is still on the battlefield, ready to mess things up. I think, unfortunately for Davis, the writing is just on the wall here. I don't know what he can do.
Well, he's got a land that he can't use,
Yep.
and a pump spell that he can't use,
Yep.
and some creatures that he can't use, and he's dead next turn. So, I don't know.
So you tell me.
Maybe Jim sees a line I do not.
that could be the case.
Let's give him a minute.
Yep.
It's no harm.
Here comes Old Inky. Brian says, yep. It's totally fine. I'm not making a move. Whatever you do, Displacer is going to take care of. There's Become Immense.
I like trying to cast it in real time as fast as possible to perhaps mess up the Spellskite.
Okay. As though it has split second
Right,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will redirect it. I have 3 million ways to beat this.
Yeah.
I will select one of them. Jim says, all right, fine, you win. Braun-Duin going to win this match over Jim Davis 2-1. Bant Eldrazi will take down the old Infect machine. And for BBD, it's a 3-0 start.
Great hand rolled up there for Jim. Game number 3 there with what